You're listening to Second Cut. This is the independent podcast formerly of the Film Magazine that we talk about topics in film criticism, history, I don't know, other stuff. We talk about movie stuff. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who remembered to turn on Sam and Kieran's audio for the intro this time.
Woo! Did you not last time? You
No.
didn't tell us that?
I didn't realize until we were talking about Leslie Nielsen.
I'm Sam, and I'm the one who must think of a brick wall.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one that tries very hard not to go to swimming pools if he can.
It's a good plan. I mean, this hot time of year for you, though, it might be a good idea to go to pools.
You'd think.
Just avoid people with knives.
Yeah, and sort of, I don't know, cat people, but we'll get onto that later.
Cat people. Okay, so we're talking about scary kids because Weapons came out, and it has scary kids and scary kids and all kinds of stuff.
I have yet to see it.
I'm the only one of us that's seen it, so that's all I'll say.
I mean, I was getting several thousand people
I've also
thrown
yet
at
to
my
see
head.
it.
So
Yeah, I did see Bring Her Back last week, so finally, so that had creepy kids in it as well. So
it does.
Yeah.
And I guess creepy kids, and then also really, really old people in children's bodies.
Yeah.
I guess presenting as kids is what counts. They have to be under 18, and that's why we're not watching Ringu.
Yeah. I mean, it's a kid-focused movie, but obviously The Long Walk comes out not far in the future as well, even though they're not creepy. They're the ones getting slaughtered, but they chose to, so...
Kieran, did you read stuff about spooky children?
I think I read about 3 pages of stuff and then kind of didn't have time for it. So unfortunately, no, not as much as I wanted to. Although I did find a thing to The Bad Seed, which was originally a book and then a play in 1954 and then got made into a film in 1956. And I have watched that. And it actually is essentially a Hitchcock movie. But imagine if the killer was an 8-year-old girl with pigtails. And it actually is, it's very interesting. There are parts that are slightly overdone and could have been slightly more subtle, and Hitchcock would have done it in a different way, but it's kind of, for what it is, it's a very interesting film and mostly focused on the fact that the mother sort of halfway through realizes that her daughter is essentially an absolute murdering sociopath. And will kill multiple people, anyone that gets in her way to obtain trinkets and anything she finds pretty, essentially. And how the hell do you deal with that as a mother? It's an interesting one. But they apparently it was kind of marketed as sort of the first film with an evil child sort of in it. And I'm not sure of the exact thing, but that was kind of how they pushed the marketing. So it's interesting to see that although kind of creepy kids have been around before then. I'm thinking of things like M.R. James in ghost stuff for something like Lost Hearts had done stuff like that beforehand. And obviously in fiction, in terms of major motion pictures, in the development of horror and thrillers, this is really one of the first ones of The Bad Seed. But we're not covering The Bad Seed, but it's an interesting place. So the mid-50s is sort of where it kind of starts, I guess.
Well, I'd bet if you had read the rest of the pages, it would have gone into something like kids are pure and innocent in theory, that's sort of what they symbolize, and corrupting them, making them evil is scary inherently.
It's an aberration, isn't it? And yes, it's something that's just off, that's uncanny. This thing should be innocent and harmless and should want bring on our instincts to protect it, but we're repulsed by it, and we fear it, and just know it in our bones that something's a bit off about them.
Yeah, because I was thinking, and by the way, Sam, I think your audio is very slightly out of sync. I think there's a little bit of an audio delay, so if we talk over you, apologies.
Okay,
it may be fixing. But but I was thinking about this sort of last week before I went and got several thousand people thrown at the back of my head for a weekend. Genuinely, machine-headed 90-minute set had over 1,000 people over the barrier. It was mental. But I was thinking about this, and when I started to do the bits of reading, okay, when you get like 3 pages into an introduction of a book and then have to do something, so never actually get round to it. I can't remember who it was, but was suggesting kind of the idea of kind of the child as innocence is a fairly kind of romantic notion with a capital R. So it's sort of about 250 years old. Obviously, there was stuff like that beforehand, but in terms of kind of the pure innocence is a very sort of romantic capital R kind of thing, very Wordsworth kind of thing. Anyone that's read lyrical ballads, Wordsworth, Coleridge, quite a few of the poems are in there are kind of the child is pure innocence, and as it grows up becomes tainted, and so a lot of people have kind of said that this is what it goes through. And I actually personally was thinking of it, and I actually think it goes a slight step further than that. It's arguable that in a lot of these things it's not so much about the loss of innocence, but the fact that a loss of innocence now kind of represents adulthood. So the fact that there's a child displaying adult tendencies means there is a temporal disconnect more than anything else. This is kind of a person out of time, if that makes sense. A kind of time out of joint, I believe, is the phrase in Hamlet, which Derrida makes a whole entire flipping concept of hauntology out of, and it's just like, no, this is weird. It's a joke. His notion of hauntology was the idea of kind of something from the past haunting the present, which is a whole kind of thing of
Communism.
theory. Well, he was Derrida. He was a Frenchman from the 90s because most philosophy is now French from the past 50 years. That's how it works. But kind of thing, yeah. So I think kind of the evil child is kind of there's an adult in a child's body, and therefore it's or displaying adult tendencies, and therefore it's not so much that it's an adult thing. It's just that kind of loss of innocence, if we want to term it, has come far earlier than it should have done, and therefore there is a switch there in terms of a kind of time dislocation, which actually the bad seed is very, very interesting because she's dressed up and most of the characters go along, and she's kind of all in pigtails, all in a dress and things like that, and they keep saying, I thought young people were into jeans nowadays, but you seem very kind of old fashioned. You're an old fashioned sweetheart, something like that. So there is a time thing going on there. She is an adult, kind of old fashioned, archaic, out of joint with the rest of now. And I think as we go forward, looking at kind of all 3 of the texts we've got lined up, there is an age thing going on there, in Village of the Damned, in The Brood, certainly with the kind of relationship to the mother, and then in Let the Right One In with the technical age of the antagonist. There is always a temporal thing going on. So that's my 2 cents on this. It's all about time, which is an illusion, obviously.
Yeah.
And in all 3 of the films too, there's sort of a different external force that's robbing that romantic innocence.
Well, this is what actually makes the bad seed interesting. Again, just watching it this afternoon, I half thought about doing it, and then I'm like, no, I'll let the right one, because I've just seen that and know we can do it. But in the bad seed, there's a lot of things. This is 1954, which is original text in 56, and actually you can see it's very play based and sort of several acts sort of thing. It's very inner house sort of house drama, but a lot of it is actually talking about there's a few characters that are kind of sort of amateur psychologists. One of them reckons that I was analyzed by Freud, kind of thing, back in my day. One of the older characters, and I'm see if I can get the mic a little bit better. But also there was and I completely lost my train of thought.
Something
now. What
about
was I talking?
Freud. A guy was analyzed.
Yeah, the psychoanalysis. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion there, and I think this is actually coming into the part of the time of discussion of is it your environment, or is it something hereditary? So is it an external force, or is it something you're born with? And they all go, well, surely it's from the external side, and some of them go, no, actually, sometimes you're just born bad. You are a bad seed, as it turns out. And I was also thinking of the we did Forbidden Planet last time, I think it was. And in The Tempest, you've got, which is what it's based on, you've got the line that good wombs have borne bad sons. So that's an interesting one in which essentially says that it's not an external force. They were just born messed up to begin with, and there's nothing you can do. Which sometimes films go into, but a lot of times in horror, it is there as an external force. You think of stuff like Pet Sematary, you think of even The Children, you think of Bloody Birthday to a certain extent, because they're fine until there's some eclipse or whatever it is on the birthday that switches them. And then obviously in sort of like Halloween, the idea is that he's not born bad, but there is something that flicks a switch in his head that changes him. Obviously, in 4, 5, and 6, you've got the Cult of Thorn or whatever it is, blah blah blah. Even we were thinking of doing. I initially was thinking of doing Ring, and then I went, no, she's actually technically not a teenager, even though we think of her as creepy ghost girl. But she's kind of, it's all the abuse she suffers over the years, and therefore is external pressure. So you do have that, but there are rare instances where the kid's just evil right from the start, and it just takes a while to manifest. So there's an interesting thing there.
Yeah. When I think of The Exorcist or The Omen in that context, that aspect of it does drag it down a little for me, because it is just the literal devil and demons. And in The Exorcist specifically, like, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure, though, that Reagan's mom is like an atheist, and presumably she would be too. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing you can really do to stop it other than, you know, Christian stuff, which that aspect's interesting with Father Karras. But, you know, thinking about like, what is the demon in that movie? I mean, it's really just a demon, kind of.
A typical Babylonian thing. Oh, we'll say it's the devil, but we'll also say it's not the devil, because random demon from Babylonia, who is only like half evil, because all of these ancient gods and demons are sort of. He's Pazuzu's like god of like the north wind or something along those lines, where kind of ill things come the way, but he's technically not evil in you know any kind of bit like most of the Greek gods. I saw a meme today that kind of if you had a good life in ancient Greece, it means the gods didn't notice you. It's kind of the gods they're normally fine, but they're also capable of absolute awful things at the same time, and that's kind of how most of the kind of ancient spirits are attributed to these two things, which is why I think The Exorcist is a strange one in making it Pazuzu, because half the time it's like, is this Pazuzu? But he responds to modern Christian threats. Like, where is the line? Are they saying that Pazuzu is Satan and therefore it's just a different name? I've never quite managed to marry that.
I've gone by many names over the eras.
Well, he adopts a name from a cowboy, so he's at least like 20 years behind the
Captain
American
Howdy.
cultural zeitgeist. I would presume it's like how, like in the Old Testament, the Jewish people would be like, oh, today we're worshiping Baal, and then God would get mad at them, and they just hadn't fully put in that, like, Pazuzu is just an oppositional spirit to God or something.
Yeah, the trouble is, I'm fairly sure that Babylon was leveled like, yeah. I mean the just googling sort of it was sort of leveled, abandoned. Okay, technically 1000 AD, but sort of in fits and starts. So I'm fairly sure Pazuzu is like a ridiculously old god belonging to a different religion belief system entirely. So they just nick that and go, sorry, he was the devil as well, and that one, and that one. Yep, they're all the devil. They're all the devil. Yep. It's just a really weird mix of that. Anyway, yeah, it's an external force. Damien in the Omen is a weird one, because he literally is the child of the devil and therefore born bad. So do you say that's an external force? Do
I mean,
you say that
the
is
devil
inherent
might be the external force at that point, but it's both, kind of.
Yeah, like he is the child of the devil, therefore he was technically always going to be evil.
Yeah.
You know, like damn it, Sam Neill, in the later ones. But how does that work? Not quite sure. But it's an interesting one. Again, all these things are interesting to consider, kind of philosophically and theologically, and how they actually apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say this as somebody who a couple of months ago at one of the things had very long, a good 15, 20 minute debate with a couple of people over whether whether Hill House in The Haunting of Hill House was possessed or alive, or possessed or what was it? No, it was. Is it possessed or haunted or something along those lines? And I go, no, it is. It is a house that is possessed. And somebody was like, no, there's just ghosts in it. Had big things like that. So these are the debates I get into.
Well, I mean, we need to move on to scary kid movies, but what is the difference between possessed versus a ghost just being in there? Is it like not necessarily even malicious, but just direct action?
It was more a case of I was arguing that actually Hill House was, at least in the book, was technically described as being alive, because the famous lines that Hill House not sane stood against its walls or whatever. Therefore, it is alive, and happens to have ghosts. And somebody else was arguing, no, just the ghosts are what make everything creepy. And therefore, the house is just a house, and the ghosts, all the creepy stuff, is just the ghosts within it. And I'm going, no, the house itself is mad. Like it's like is the ship in Event Horizon, is that now alive, or are there just creepy things in it? Because Sam Neill half the time goes, the ship wants to take me back, and says it's
I mean, a haunting is normally ghosts. They're confined to a location, aren't they? So there's something to do with that location that keeps them there, and keeps them wandering in internal torment.
Interestingly enough,
I think possession is normally implied to be something more demonic, more malicious, isn't it? It's there's intention behind a possession, whether it's hauntings, ghosts are just there, and it's not their fault. They just ended up trapped there.
I mean, part of my PhD thesis is arguing that playing a video game controlling a character is technically a form of demonic possession, because you control an avatar.
Sims.
Well, you control an avatar, and the origin of avatar is from Hinduism, where it's the form the gods would take. Therefore, to control an avatar is to become godlike and take control of another thing. Therefore, it is in some way no different to a god taking control of a human being and moving it around. Therefore, it is the same as possession. But this is going off topic. Interestingly enough, none of us picked Ghost kids for this.
No.
We
did talk about it, but
I think we were just like, we'll stay away from it. I was tempted to rewatch Lost Hearts, but
I think haunted teenager would be a separate category, because like people just generally dislike teenagers. They're all angsty.
For me, one of the scariest images in all of horror cinema is the Grady twins. In that corridor in The Shining. But there's such a small part of that film. I kind of thought, I could really discuss it. Revolving around that. Like Guillermo del Toro's two ghost stories. The Devil's Backbone and Crimson Peak, he insists that neither of those are ghost stories. They're just stories with ghosts in them, which is kind of interesting.
I mean that's an interesting thing as well. That's very kind of classical in its thing, because until sort of the 1800s, again, PhD stuff here. It's almost like I'm doing a PhD on ghosts, but until sort of the 1800s, I mean, many people have described who did Ivanhoe, Walter Scott, that's it. The Tapestry Chamber as one of the first kind of ghost stories, aka short stories where the whole focus is a ghostly entity. Before that, if you go back, kind of stories of ghosts in, they just happen to be like part of a pantheon or just a thing in it. You think of sort of even kind of your classical Greek stuff, your general myths and legends. Even think of like Shakespeare, like there are ghosts in sort of Julius Caesar, because the ghost of Julius Caesar there, but he's not the major part in it. Even Hamlet's father on the battlements, he's a plot device that Shakespeare threw in just to get things going. It wasn't in the original story of Hamlet. Like all these things are just a part of natural. Ghost stories come around into the 1800s as a focused thing. But so it's weird that Del Toro's like, these are just stories with ghosts in, and everyone's like, yeah, but we have to categorize it somehow. So we're going to call it a ghost movie because it's a ghost movie. And I'm sorry, The Devil's Backbone is a ghost movie because your entire story is around dealing with a ghostly kid. What else are we going to call it? Shut up.
Anyway, let's move on to some creepy kids or kid-like things that aren't ghosts but are creepy for other reasons.
I guess three of them aren't technically kids. Like each movie has a scary kid that it's like it's child actors at least.
And again, this is the interesting thing, that a lot of the time the kids aren't necessarily kids in a way. They are something else. Strangely enough, one of the ones I do think of that I thought about doing and then went, is the movie really good enough to justify it, was Children of the Corn. But then I'd have to talk about all of the god awful sequels, which, if somebody wants to see my rankings of all the god awful sequels, it's still up at the Film Magazine. All of the Children of the Corn movies ranked, so I suffered them, so you don't have to. You're welcome. But yeah, so we didn't do that. Sam, you decided to do Village of the Damned instead.
Yes, I did. So this is my first watch of this film. Amazingly, after all these years, I've never got around to it before. It's been on my list for age. I've never got around to it.
Yeah.
Please find I have done, though, because I really enjoyed it. So it's a 1960 British sci-fi-ish horror film based on the 1957 novel The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. Who also wrote Dave Triffids. And it's about a village called Midwich, where every adult mysteriously falls asleep for an afternoon, and when they wake up, every woman of childbearing age becomes miraculously pregnant. And the resulting children, they rapidly age and develop psychic powers, develop a hive mind for communication between them, and start controlling the adults in the village to commit horrible acts. And they basically kill or manipulate the residents of Midwich and plan to spread their influence further afield, especially when they feel a bit threatened. Fun enough, like a cuckoo. I mean, that's where the book title comes from. Cuckoos are parasitic birds. They leave their eggs in the nests of other birds, and the cuckoo, which is much larger and more aggressive than most of these birds, basically eats all the food and dumps the other chicks out of the nest and takes over essentially. So this is very much, I can say it's like a British take on the kind of paranoia that fueled all the American sci-fi films of the 50s. It's definitely that kind of take of it, that kind of paranoia set in like a small English village. I'd say it's probably no longer all that scary, but it's still a bit eerie. I quite like the atmosphere to it, and you've got to respect how dark a lot of the events in it are, and how they don't really flinch in terms of actually depicting it. I mean, obviously, it's not gruesome or anything, but some really screwed up stuff happens within the piece. And it's kind of just good old fashioned horror techniques, really. It was low budget, shot in black and white, and essentially the creepy aspect comes from just asking your child actors not to blink and then superimposing like some quite basic kind of ocular effects on top of their eyes for like key scenes of them using their powers. And that was achieved by basically they filmed the scene and then they mattered like a negative image of their eyes over the pupils to kind of overlays another kind of it's almost like double exposure, but with like a negative image of the eye basically to make it look like it was glowing. Apparently the British print of the film on release didn't have these optical effects because the BBFC considered it too frightening with glowing eyes, so they just had these kids just staring, and you just had to doing that.
And that's actually interesting because I mean I used the Midwich Cuckoos for my third year writing project. Was one of my case studies. I did it on what I termed the imitation narrative. So I did like some of the 50s Cold War things, The Exorcist, The Omen, aka somebody looks human but they're not. Sort of thing. So this is one of my things, and the one of my ideas, which I was then going to use in my writing thing, was that the eyes are a giveaway as to what's human and not, because very often, if you think of even think of Dracula's kind of hypnotic stare, you think of the eyes in this, even Reagan sort of there's the shot of her face going into her eyes in The Exorcist and things like that. Quite often, it's the eyes that are the giveaway, and they're described as having specifically golden eyes. So if you take that away in the print, then half of the actual kind of thing is lost. This is the proof that we need that these children are not right. Other than that, they could just be weird people, but you have to have this physical manifestation of the evil in order to prove it. Otherwise, you can argue either way.
Kieran, you could put Twilight in there. That fits right in.
Yep, and any vampires or anything kind of automatically fit into the narrative.
Sam, is the BBFC the British Board of Film Censorship?
British Board of Film Classification.
Well, it was censorship
classification
back then. Yeah, in the mid-century, it was Board of Film Censorship, but yeah, it was classification from like the 80s onwards, I think.
Okay, that was a marketing tool to change the name.
Yeah, they got censored.
So I've not properly read the original book, but I've skimmed it. I've seen kind of synopsis and stuff, and you'll be able to tell me if this. It seems like a fairly close adaptation. Of this film. It's
fairly close, yeah.
I think broad kind of it gets all the key points like the same and everything. I mean, and obviously as you go into it, kind of you realize it's like an extraterrestrial force essentially that's causing these weird events and basically causing miraculous conception, in this English village. And there's references, to this happening at other places around the world as well. So I think in the books there are about 30 of these kids, but they reduced down to 12, including David in this film. Just probably just easier just to deal with that number of kids on screen.
Not only do they have kids for it all around the world, they're like even the Eskimos and the black people, they're having these Aryan children.
Yeah, and there's kind of an uncomfortable line about the Eskimo villagers killing their children because they came out white, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's there are a few bits of this where it makes you wince a little bit, but obviously a product of its time. You've got to view it through that lens. I've seen some criticism of all the female characters basically just being plot devices, really not really getting to do anything themselves. You got to produce these kids somehow, and then once the kids are out and walking about, we don't need to do much more with your characters. We'll just let the men folk handle it from here on.
Yeah,
it's not great, but also do remember that it's only 77. I'm looking at Wiki, 77 minutes long. And although the book isn't the longest thing in the world, it's like 200 pages. There's quite a bit of plot to get through and quite a lot of time. So actually, realistically, this thing does speed along.
It does. There isn't that fat on it. I mean, and if you've got a load of exposition to deliver, then who better to get than George Sanders? I mean, one of the great voices of kind of film history. It's just I could just listen to him reading the telephone book. Just Shere Khan himself, just such a soothing voice.
Yeah.
See, this is where I'm going to differ. It's only 77 minutes, and I thought it was incredibly boring, basically until the kids showed up. Watching the very British people who I couldn't tell apart. I didn't know that the professor was the one who had passed out. I thought he was the major guy. So they're just walking around going, old sport. What do you think of this disappearance? I don't know. Let's fly a plane over. Oh, the plane crashed.
It's very British and sort of like this.
It felt like a very proper telling of like a sci-fi story.
But I think that's kind of part of the what works with this is that kind of fustiness, that kind of cozy, old-fashionedness that kind of puts you off. So you're kind of in like a false sense of security, this nice cozy village and slow-paced life and everything. And then all these weird things start to happen. And oh god, these children are making these village bumpkins
like off themselves.
It feels like basically. I know it's in Paris, but the lawyer and the lady who owns the cats and Aristocats, I feel like this is the sci-fi horror they would write. Up until
I mean that did come out during Disney's English Obsession, where like every one of their films, if it wasn't actually set in England, it was very much English in its kind of in its characterization of people.
I think a very good parallel to this. I mean, bearing in mind the novel came out in 1957. So the kind of this is sort of. We're out of the universal period of horror. We're now in this weird middle section, essentially before you have like the late 60s when censorship drops, where you have Night of the Living Dead, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, Hammer properly. So I mean, this is before Hammer starts putting blood in everything.
Yeah.
People made movies with like
I mean,
interesting performances before the
yeah.
60s, like horror aside.
I mean, but in terms of like British horror at this time, it's like, what do you have? Do you have has Night of the Demon come out yet? What
Yeah, that
years is
was
that?
55.
Yeah, so Night of the Demon's come out. There's been some very early Hammer stuff, hasn't there? They've done
Yeah.
at least they've done a Quatermass film, haven't they?
Yes, I want to say
The
yeah.
first, yeah, yes, I believe the first, and obviously they had the Quatermass TV series as well before that, mid 50s. So, but yeah, but generally it's like you're thinking of like traditional kind of gothic stuff for this kind of this a little bit different to that, I think, and kind of a sign of like things to come. Quite liking this. I didn't honestly I didn't notice this, or I should have done, but it's a nice little. They linger on a few like road signs that you traditionally see on like British highways. It's beware of children.
Yeah.
You know, which, we get like near schools and stuff. Get traffic to slow down, but literally it's a warning in this. Like beware of the children.
I once saw a thing saying slow children, and I was just like, we'll just tell them to speed up then. Like, the thing I like about it is also kind of the influence of this is incredible. If you've seen things like just any kind of thing where there's a sort of rural village cut off by a mysterious force, it's automatically Midditch cuckoos.
So I've got this quote here from James Travers, who basically he sort of picks up something that I'd also picks up on, and he says the film bears more on the passing similarity with Nigel Neal's huge popular Quatermass TV series of the 50s.
Yeah.
The latter had engendered a quintessentially British version of the science fiction, which was far more firmly anchored in the reality of everyday life than its American counterpart. Like the groundbreaking Quatermass stories, Village of the Damned can be viewed as a subtle allegory for Cold War paranoia, in which communities' instinctive suspicion of an outsider quickly escalates into blind hatred and disastrous conflict. Today, the film is more likely to invite reflection on the seemingly unbridgeable rift that has developed in recent years between parents and their offspring, two species that really do seem to come from different planets and who find coexistence increasingly difficult.
And it's
all there, isn't it? But it's just you just need to dig like a little bit below the surface, I think, and is that kind of almost mundanity that kind of puts you off balance at first, but then kind of you be blindsided by the more kind of gruesome kind of ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the immediate actually very quickly on the sort of splitting thing. Wyndham was a kind of science fiction writer first and foremost over a horror writer. I've got one of his very early novels called The Secret People, which there's a kind of like almost like a flying car kind of thing that a guy takes his girlfriend in like over Africa, and it crashes and they end up underground, and there's like a load of people that have crashed there over the year that are kept there by a race of kind of I believe they would be described in their, and this is the word that springs to mind, as pygmies. Bearing in mind, this was written in 1935, not a very politically correct term, but that is how they would have been described. And so you've got stuff like that. Obviously, Day of the Triffids is a comet that blinds people so that bioengineered alien plants can attack things. That is pure kind of H.G. Wells riffing. And actually, it's quite weird. I was reading that for the first time and going, essentially, it's just like, until about 110 pages in, like, this is the exact plot of 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Guess what? Yes, it is.
Alex Garland has said that in interviews, doesn't he? Yeah, it's like, I really like Day of the Triffids. I want to see my version of that.
So he is a pure science fiction writer, and so kind of the mysterious force to rope everything off, I find, is such a ridiculously useful concept. The other thing, possibly immediate comparison with this, is the American version would be Body Snatchers.
Yes.
But that's everybody taken over, and that's a pure invasion threat rather than strange people in the town. But you still have a cutting off in a strange way. That's an infiltration. There's similarities, but with this, I think if you've seen, is it The Earth Dies Screaming? from a few years later, where essentially a kind of town is cut off and people wander in and it's just abandoned, and there are strange kind of almost like robot proto Cybermen type figures in there marching around. I think of something like The Ghosts of Sleeth, which is the James Herbert novel, where there's just kind of like you go in and suddenly there's almost like a wall that as soon as you enter, things feel different. If you've seen a film called, I think it's The Monster Club with Vincent Price and John Carradine in it, it's an anthology film, and one of the last things, you turn off the highway and then you go on to what is obviously a set for the film, but suddenly there's almost like a wall, you go through, everything shrouded in fog sort of thing.
And there have been various kind of quite similar episodes of Doctor Who over the years as well, haven't there? Usually the ones where they don't really have much budget to play with, so they've got to be a bit more clever about things. And it's more the idea that does the talking.
A very base under siege kind of thing, and I think it all kind of stems from this. And as somebody who's tried to write similar things that where kind of events happen in a village, but you have to kind of close everything off so it doesn't spread to keep everything contained, you go, well, essentially, what variation of the Midwich Cuckoo's kind of blackout am I going to come up with now? Because every time you come up with it, you go, that's just Midwich Cuckoos. No, it's just Midwich Cuckoos. How the hell do I have events happening in here for a prolonged period of time? You have to come up with some mysterious force.
Yeah.
Sam, for this movie specifically, you mentioned like in that quote you gave, there was a little bit about like Cold War. Well, did this have to do with like Cold War paranoia in Britain? Was it about like immigrants? I mean, culturally in 1960, the UK.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what's going on.
It seems to be more like kind of that small town mindset, possibly commentary on that.
Like urbanization versus the villages.
It's difficult to tell, really. I'm not sure whether Wyndham kind of really went into that much detail about kind of analysing his work. Really,
it's been like 7-8 years since I read it.
Yeah, but he obviously he had experience. He kind of he served in the war. And he was writing before and after, and obviously saw conflict. So whether it's something linked to warfare, and I'm not really entirely sure about that. And I think it's safe to say any kind of sci-fi or horror film from this period, when it was such a worldwide kind of Cold War kind of paranoia, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It can't be completely divorced from that. It might have been intentional commentary on it, but possibly influenced it to some extent.
Yeah, and even if it's not the Cold War, also remember that the book was written in 57. If he's someone in 56, there are still trenches and bombed out buildings from the war lying around. I'm not sure when rationing ended, but it went on for several years after the war finished. There is going to be stuff about,
I think, rationing ended.
Yeah, and obviously the Home Guard, a lot of it was trying to catch kind of German infiltrators out. So there will be.
They're little Aryan kids. So like, is it maybe about lingering Nazism or something?
I think it's very possible. I mean, like, sort of World War II is Britain's national myth now. It isn't an event anymore. It is a concept. So there's definitely some of that. I also think on the Cold War thing, I remember from the book. I can't remember how much is brought up in the film. Bearing in mind I watched this over a week ago. Before heading off to Bloodstock, that there was mention that I think in the book, like the Russian place had been bombed, and there were threats that they were going to throw nukes at them.
So the Eskimos killed their kids. The ones in Australia died off mysteriously. They seemed to die themselves of natural causes. And then the ones in Russia, Russia specifically took that decision to basically nuke a whole town to destroy them, and the children in Midwich basically say you're gonna have to do the same to us. That's why they're looking overhead for planes. And they put this that their psychic field has like an exclusion zone. A few miles up, so aircraft can't get anywhere near. We know about them without them knowing.
So I think even if it's not kind of specifically about kind of Cold War fears or whatever, there's going to be some lingering paranoia in there that they kind of reference, even if it's not kind of the main focus.
With the US sci-fi this era, it's always easy to just say, it's Cold War. So I don't know how it differs for the UK, because like I don't know. Pretty much I know kitchen sink movies are going on, so.
Yeah.
So have either of you guys seen the other versions of this? So
I've seen the
John
Carpenter one, unfortunately.
Carpenter remade it in '96. It's not good, is it? From what I've heard.
Yeah, let me just check where I ranked it for the Film Magazine on all of his movies. I'm fairly sure it was low down.
So there was that one, and then there was a TV miniseries from about 5 years ago.
Haven't seen the miniseries. I ranked it 15th out of 19 movies.
Right, yeah, so not great then. But it's interesting that this film. So I think two much more modern versions and presumably higher budgets. I suppose particularly for the miniseries, it would have had a decent budget. But this kind of story, I think it is an advantage for the original to have a low budget and just get your mind to do the work, basically. Not to have to be able to fall back on special effects or beyond like the most basic ones. I think that's appropriate for this story. I wouldn't want to see a version where you kind of had like a more explicit visualization of the psychic powers or anything more elaborate than that, really.
Jacob might think differently because he found the first part of this movie quite stuffy and slow.
Maybe they just needed to talk more like Jimmy Stewart. Then I wouldn't mind it.
I'm not doing it.
Michael Bay's Village of the Damned would be amazing.
Oh god, yeah. So Zack Snyder's, that they're doing like having big psychic battles, lots of speed ramping going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, they use footage from this for Iron Maiden when they do Children of the Damned, which is based on this. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. So to get that effect right, to be able to overlay that kind of that optical effect, over the footage you'd already shot. For these close-ups, right, the poor kids, the child actors, they had to have their heads clamped in place to make sure they didn't move at all. So they got the alignment just right. Different times. You couldn't clamp your kids these days.
And interestingly,
generation of squibs.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Martin Stevens, who plays David,
yes,
he's
also in another creepy kid movie.
In The Innocents, which is one of the best movies ever made. Just fact. There is no arguing with that. It is one of the best movies ever made. Not just best horror movies, one of the best films. But he was a child actor who started at 54, gave it up in 66, and sort of he apparently gone on to be an architect. Just
nice.
Gone this one, have a different life.
And he also died in his two most prominent screen appearances as well. Despite being a child, you don't normally kill off the kids, but if they're evil, you can kind of get away with it.
And he's sort of, you see the kind of fruits of it here, but then in The Innocents, he just completely, he's so good in The Innocents for a kid who's like 13, 14. It's insane. One of the kind of, even if only those two films I ever seen him, he is one of the best kind of British child actors we've ever had. It's so good.
I can't say the same for all of the children in this. I mean,
no, but you know what we say about, or I say about child actors. 99.9% of the time, they're either great or awful. There is no in between.
Sometimes they're internally just extra talented.
But you can't really tell. You can't really put it on them for their line reading this because they're meant to be a bit kind of zombified and kind of operating on a different plane, aren't they? So it could have been a choice, to have them doing those line readings. But I think he generally is very good in this as David. I think he's convincingly the leader of this kind of hive mind, isn't he? And just.
And he's the leader without being kind of the big bully kind of thing. He's kind of very eloquent.
He's one of the smaller ones, isn't he? He's small, well spoken, and the way he says "father."
I thought his voice was ADR'd by a woman at first. I was very confused.
No, that is his voice.
As far as I can tell.
Here's Jacob just insulting all the Britishness.
It's not because he's British. It was just the level of his voice. So. I guess that's just kids, though.
absolute just like American patriot over there, just disrespecting his fatherland.
That's the only way we could survive now.
Yeah. It wasn't surprising to read for me to read that this is one of Stephen King's favorite films of all time. It's in his top 10, and I could definitely see the influence on a lot of his stuff here. I think so. Or the same themes, just like dark underbelly, so that's slightly off in a seemingly kind of calm and pristine place. It's and obviously he's got form with a few creepy kids in his work as well, hasn't he?
Well, most of his thing is about childhood, so that's kind of the Stephen King shtick, So.
Sam, it's funny when you brought up The Shining as a creepy kid movie. I thought of the little girls and not Danny doing the the Shining stuff.
I completely forgot about Danny, to be honest.
Yeah,
I thought the Grady twins. But yeah, I mean, the other one, I guess, is Children of the Corn. Even Carrie, to a certain extent. Pet Cemetery. The floating vampire kid in Salem's Lot.
I mean, in it, obviously, generally, it's the kids who are like the protagonists, but there's obviously the bully kids, aren't there, as well? And phantoms coming back, like little Georgie coming back. It's it's definitely a well trod kind of theme for him. I enjoyed Village of the Damned, and I'll probably read the book at some point because it sounds interesting.
And even if you didn't massively enjoy it, Jacob, it's only 77 minutes, so you got it over with fairly quickly.
Yes. And I do like the final act with the kids, but where they're trying to figure out, what's happened to this village? I was just so bored. I could not think of something more boring than people standing around expositing about the movie. So
it's and again, I think they would have done something differently if they'd have given it an extra sort of 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it's only 77 minutes long. You have to cram an awful lot in. You don't have a lot of... It is fairly
more showings in the theater.
It is fairly plot. There's not a lot of downtime, but the scenes that are done, at least after they wake up for Jacob, are very, very well done.
All right. Well, I picked... So it took me a while to realize all three of our movies were non-American. It was until they said somebody's working in Halifax that I realized, The Brood is Canadian, and he wasn't making movies in Hollywood by this point. David Cronenberg's The Brood, when I Google searched creepy kid movies, a Reddit link popped up and I went to it. The Brood was the first one. And while it does have a real child sort of at the center of it, the creepy kids are the little evil, rubber mask faced killers. And so it's another instance of played by child gymnasts, technically kids. But I mean, we'll get into it. They're not really born in the traditional sense, at least. And they're, they're not human children in the traditional sense.
No.
Yeah, but I mean that's again, that's kind of what we're saying. A lot of these kids aren't sort of kids in the traditional sense, and even if they are, there's normally some kind of moment that switches them. The
creepy children in The Brood are as much actual children as the doppelganger of the daughter at the end of Don't Look Now is.
And there's a lot of child actors too, because there's a whole scene in a school. But pretty much what the plot of it is. Well, no, before the plot, I'll go into Cronenberg of it. So David Cronenberg doesn't necessarily buy into auteur theory, but I read an interview from Salon where he was like, when I started out, it felt like if you're not the writer-director, you're not a real filmmaker. So in the 70s when he's making his movies, he's sort of working with that perspective on his work, influencing him. And he made this movie. He was writing the screenplay, and he heard about Kramer versus Kramer, which was being produced and came out the same years. And so he wanted to make a movie about his own divorce and make it more honest, in the sense that you could feel the rage for the mother character in this film through the screen. Although there is, clearly there is empathy and a sense for her, and the film offers perspective on how she became the way that she is. You can't help but watch this movie, and then once you get that knowledge, realize, oh, this is because David Cronenberg hates his ex-wife. That's what this movie is about. So Cronenberg makes a movie about a divorced father and mother. They have a little girl named Candy, and he also cast two people that he described as facsimiles of himself and his wife. That's why he cast Samantha Eggar and Art Hindle, who play the mom and dad respectively. And Oliver Reed plays the psychotherapist. Emphasis on the psycho.
Emphasis on psycho.
Yeah.
The wife, I think her name's Nola or Nella, one of those two. I think Nola. She has been sequestered to a cutting edge psychoplasmatic institute, which sounds very real. And the dad, I don't remember his name. He's the boring one. He's just the good parent who cares about his child. He goes to a demonstration of the doctor's methods, which involve really intense role play. And when the film opens, I thought it was a performance. It looks like people sitting on a stage doing a two-person improv show or something. But no, it's a doctor working with mentally unwell folks. And whenever the dad's taking Candy to go visit the mom, but he realizes there's scratches and bruises on her, so he's going to report it to CPS, and they're like, but a child needs the mother according to the state. And so just intermixed in there are little shots at unfit parents and whether or not they deserve their children. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm going to figure out how to, get full custody and care best for my daughter. And meanwhile, the mom is getting, experimental treatment for her, mental illness and trauma. But that trauma does begin to externalize. And so when she's having a session about her mother, these tiny little childlike killers break into the mom's house and murder her with hammers. And that goes on to be the evil little killer's signature is hammers.
I will say, when I was watching that scene in general, I was thinking, if Child's Play wasn't in some way the first one where it's kind of shots of feet running along and then somebody dies kind of thing, there wasn't some kind of influence here. I don't know if I'm just reading into things, because there's definitely some things in that.
And so that's what the horror is. It's the creepy little kids beating people to death when the mom thinks of them. And Cronenberg's biggest success up until this point had been Shivers. So, I mean, when this film came out, he's established-ish. But I have this 101 Iconic 70s Movies book. None of his are in it. So he's still kind of a budding director, before his 80s fare, from what I've researched.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I think some of them realistically, sort of, the original Crimes of the Future, not really. But then Shivers, Rabid, and the Brood might be known in sort of the horror community, but I think it's Scanners that really sort of, even if it's only known for one thing, which is an exploding head near the beginning of the movie, those are the ones that do. I will say I do have a poster of Shivers signed by Lynn Lowry, so just saying.
Nice. Yeah, but it's as he turned into the 80s and really got on with that sci-fi body horror kind of binge, basically, that he became known.
Scanners, Videodrome, Dead Zone, The Fly, Dead Ringers, Naked Lunch, just in a run. It's just brutal.
I didn't know he made gangster movies, so I'm gonna have to go watch those. So pretty much for Cronenberg, this is not an incredibly shocking movie throughout its runtime. I think he described it as his most conventional horror narrative. which it is. It has a lot of downtime. It has a lot of people sitting around talking, but there's the point where a former patient of Oliver Reed's pulls off his towel he has around his neck, and there's like weird looking body horror stuff going on.
Yeah. And one of the all-time great horror reveals, like towards the end as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aside from a few moments and the eventual kind of reveal of what's going on, it is a fairly conventional murder mystery.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a murder mystery or a crime thriller sort of thing, that eventually has some body horror stuff in it.
Almost a bit Jello in its structure, I'd say.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I don't want to say it because I just sound like, I'm reading Giallo into everything, but the Giallo were obviously kind of massive when he started filmmaking, so he would undoubtedly have been influenced by it.
Well, it has J&B in it. It doesn't have the black gloves, and I guess they wear little like ski suits. But most of the Giallo like codes are technically missing, if you want to say that's what's required for it to be Giallo and not just like murder mystery or crime thriller or whatever.
Yeah. You don't need J&B for it to be Giallo, but more than likely if it's Giallo, J&B will be in.
Yes, it helps. But yeah, Cronenberg really does go crazy with it at the end, and I'm going to spoil it because I mean there's not tons to talk about outside of the teacher getting murdered in front of all the students is really shocking. And then at the end, whenever she pulls up her dress, which is very expertly cut to not show her breasts, and all it shows is the creepy womb that's like coming out of her body. And out comes a little baby, and she starts licking it, which had to be censored a bit because people thought she was eating the baby. And then Cronenberg was like, "No,
That's
how
the
dark
issue.
do you think I am?" No, she loves these children. Yeah, and the children. There's a little magazine that foreshadows that these are externalizations of rage, and they talk about towards the beginning. That whenever Nola was a little kid, there were these little bumps that showed up on her, and no doctors knew what it was. And then it turns out it's related to this. She was abused by her mom, and that gave her little rage bumps, which I guess became a rage womb and gave birth to rage babies that murdered the mom. The dad didn't really do anything about it, so that's why she was mad at him. And finally, the little girl at the end now has little dots forming on her hand. Is it something innate within her? Is it from the mother's abuse? Is it both? I don't know, but I'm sure people would watch this now and go, "Whoa, generational trauma," because I mean that's what it is. It's just I hate when people have buzzwords.
Yeah. I mean, for all, I guess all of us at a certain point got sick during university, or are sick during university, of having to bring Freud and psychoanalysis into things.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing is just psychoanalysis, like manifested slightly.
But it's obviously is a concern of David Cronenberg's kind of filmmaking style, considering he ended up doing a film about the fans of psychoanalysis, literally a biopic about Jung and Freud.
Yeah,
so
that's fun.
It's obviously an area that interests him, that he likes to dig into in his own unique way.
Well, apparently he thought that at this point in time that psychiatry was bunk, which was another factor, or maybe it was just the exact one that like he or his wife was seeing and putting up with. I don't know, but there is sort of a derision in this film. And Oliver Reed, like, he's really good playing this like weird mad doctor, but he still has a sense of common sense and humanity towards the end.
I think that's his specialty, being a charming kind of charming guy who's a bit on the edge, and it's always fun playing that game of, right, so what was he on shooting this scene? Kind of how many substances have flown through him while the camera was on him today.
But pulls it off. It's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this is a tiny budget. I mean, $1.5 million. It's not nothing, but this is the Canadian film industry. He's still working with it, and he's getting public funds. And this is a movie that caused Canada to be like, should we be giving money to this? I don't know. It's Howard Shore's first original score with him. I think I also read this is the first original score in a Cronenberg film, so I don't know what he was using prior to this, if that's the case.
I actually don't think he bothered with music before that, really.
Oh, there you go.
I guess he would have either not bothered with music, but or used kind of limited, but the ones he did use kind of traditional classical pieces or stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember like Rabid or Shivers or anything like that.
No, I just all those shots of like cold Toronto skyline. I don't think there was any music accompanying them.
And I don't mean to do a disservice to the guy, but Samantha Eggers is insanely good in this movie. She gets to do the kind of scream queen performance. She gets to be crazy. She gets to do just wild trances and just go real nuts with it. And so it's fun seeing her do that. I think she portrays it well. And she's someone that I'm now interested in watching more movies she's done. I was impressed by her.
That's why you watch movies.
Yes. I don't really have anything else on this film. I now need to go watch more Cronenberg. My list is just growing.
This is the only trouble with doing this. It's just like, oh god, I have so much to watch. I will never get around to it all.
At least this one wasn't based on a book.
Funnily enough, I have literally today downloaded the Shrouds, Cronenberg's latest. So I'm looking forward to watching that over the next few days. And again, apparently that's him getting all autobiographical, talking about how he dealt with his grief of losing his wife, and Vincent Cassel, and that is basically playing Cronenberg. It's like a Cronenberg stand-in with the same haircut and everything. So
yeah.
I
tell you what, if you want to watch Cronenberg and more things, watch Jason X.
Yes.
No reason he's in at the start. What are you doing here, sir?
I didn't get around to Googling what Cronenberg looked like in 78, 79. But it would be hilarious if he just looks exactly like the actor playing him.
Fun again, very, very quickly. You mentioned that Howard Shore had done a load of stuff with Cronenberg. Since The Brood, he has only not scored one Cronenberg movie. Do you know which one it is? Without looking, because I've just done that to get the pub quiz. Nope.
Okay.
Was it? Was it a Dangerous Method?
Nope. How sure did that?
Just tell us now. We've both guessed.
Yeah.
The Dead Zone.
All right.
There's enough, obviously. Stephen
King.
With prominently featuring a child right at the end, well, a baby, and also Mark Sheen. But that one was done by Michael Kamen.
I think young Cronenberg has youngish Cronenberg has a similar hairstyle. But I mean, he looks he's much nerdier looking than Art Hindle.
Yeah.
That's young, not young-ish.
Yeah.
Cronenberg. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I'm not a massive. I've seen quite a few Cronenberg movies, but I'm not a massive Cronenberg.
He has a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I do struggle with his earlier ones, probably up till including Scanners, really. But then after that, they're pretty much all really good for me.
I mean, I've seen Shivers. Must have seen Rabid.
Yeah, and I think the only ones I haven't seen, looking at his filmography, I've not seen his version of Madame Butterfly. I've not seen Spider.
I've read Spider was really good while researching.
And I've not seen Maps to the Stars. Yeah, so they're the only ones I've not seen. Three of them.
Yeah. It's like I've seen Shivers. Obviously, I'm fairly sure I've seen Rabid. I've seen The Brood. This is the second time watching it. I have seen Scans in the past. I've seen Video Drone maybe twice. I have seen Dead Zone. I've seen The Fly. I think I've seen at least half of Existence. I might have seen it all the way through. After that, I haven't even seen Crimes of the Future, either version. It's just like Cronenberg's one of those ones that everyone's like going on, and I'm like, I'll watch him at some point. I just kind of not bothered. All hail the new flesh, but
apparently, The Shrouds is even more personal than this is. So I mean, if we're looking at his two most quote autobiographical films. It's this and apparently The Shrouds.
Yeah, but he's not just a horror sci-fi guy. Just check out his his crime films as well. They're really good. Eastern Promises and History of Violence are both great.
That's where I'm going next. Before I get to any more body horror that I haven't watched, it's going to be Eastern Promises for sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then do we need to talk vampires?
Well, yeah, go from one cold locale of Canada to another cold locale.
Yeah. We go to Sweden. For
Hurdy.
I like the fact you look at Wikipedia. It goes, "Let the Right One In" is a 2008 Swedish romantic horror film. Maybe coming of age horror film is probably the better idea. But romantic, well, between a 12-year-old and somebody who is 12. How long have you been 12? A while, a long time. A film.
How much romance needs to be in a film for it to be a romance film?
I don't know. Does a film that just happens to have like a love interest count as a romance film? Or does it have to be like the whole point is the romanticness of it? Yeah. So it was directed by Thomas Alfredson, based on Jon Ajvide Lundvik's novel, Let the Right One In, and the screenplay was also written by him. Got remade in 2010 by Hammer, who directed the remake.
Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves, yes.
And I must say, I really rate the remake as well. I think it's almost as good. It's that they're both really good versions of that story.
Yeah, I seem to remember when I did an article for originally it was an essay for No, I did the article first and then used that as a basis for an essay that I did my MA. But I kind of went through all of Hammer's releases up to that point, and I think my consensus was with it is that the remake wasn't awful, but you'd got the original one, and why would you bother with the remake? Like, if you're going to do a remake, at least attempt to do something vaguely different. It literally was just kind of as much as possible, slightly change it up and change the language.
I think why would you make it is a different question from why would you watch it? Why would you make it? Well, it was a successful non-English film, so we're going to make money.
Why do you watch it when you have the original? Yeah, I mean, the original had... it was Chloe Grace Moretz and Sangster, was it?
No, it was...
Cody Smith-McPhee, that's it.
That one, yeah. The other
hey,
little,
Sam,
little one.
Yeah.
Did you write any articles about this at any point in your life?
I did, yes. About 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I did something for Film Magazine comparing the two. I did original versus remake, and argued that they're both good versions of the same story and kind of stand alongside each other. So
I was going to say,
I mean, obviously the story is identical, but they do some different things with the characters in the remake. I love the touch, for instance, of like you never really get a good look at so it's Owen in the remake rather than Oscar, Owen's mum. She's always just out of frame or just out of focus, and it's like that creates that distance. It's just completely absent in his life. He's got to fend for himself. So.
And there's an essay here no, it's not going to tell me actually where it is from, is it? So it's an essay called He Opened His Eyes and Saw Only Light Blue, Veils of Pink, Notes on Let the Right One In, by Francisco Javier Gomez Tarin, Ivan Bot Gual, and Shalia Garcia Catalan, obviously. I just found on Wiki. It's in Atlante International Film Studies Journal. This is from December 12th of July to December 2011. Sorry, issue 12, July to December 2011. And in it, essentially, one of the things they were arguing is that sort of the way they're shot is that the original 2008 Swedish film, everything's very kind of a lot of the time bathed in kind of white, especially if you look at kind of the swimming pool scene right near the end. Everything's quite bright, in sort of
It's also
bathed in these fluorescent lights, whereas the
deliberate
remake is
artificial.
traditionally gothic. You
Yeah.
dim the lights and stuff like that, and
Like
also
Kieran in the
they
Sun.
and they also bring up parallels with the famous swimming pool scene right at the end to Cat People by Jacques Tourneur from 42 of the danger of the swimming pool and what's lurking around, which is why I mentioned Cat People earlier, Jacob. You see, I do some vague reading. But for those who somehow have been living under a rock, in regards to Let the Right One In, it is the story of Oscar, who lives with his mother, I think it is, in... I read the book, I've seen the movie twice, I've seen the remake, I can't remember the details. Lives with his mother in
It's a suburb of Stockholm, I think.
Yeah, or... it might be mentioned in the film. I can't remember from the book. I have it downstairs. I have read it. I can't remember. But he's kind of bullied at school, very much a loner, and meets a young girl who's moved in with her guardian in the same kind of block of residential kind of, not a suburb, but sort of like these kind of like, it's not a block of flats, but almost like a commune of several blocks of flats sort of things.
Yeah.
Apartment
Like
complex.
an apartment complex.
That's the one I'm looking
Or
for.
flat complex, sorry.
Well, this is Sweden, so we'll call it an apartment complex. We don't have we just have blocks of flats rather than an apartment complex over here. But yeah, and they kind of strike up an unusual kind of friendship as things go along. And at the same time, there is a string of murders going on where
Murder.
change the record. Jacob's like, what? We're just like hot fuzz.
Oh, I was like, it's a carry-on reference, surely.
No. It's hot fuzz. But yeah, so there's all these murders going on, and it's maybe that it's it's Ellie's. Is it Ellie or Ely? As guardian.
Yeah. We say Ellie, but yeah, I think if you're Swedish, you say Ely.
When it comes to that name and its pronunciation, I wish I knew nothing about the book. It was a bad idea to read things about the book after watching this again.
I can't remember. The book is fairly similar. Again, I can't remember. I think I read it for doing the article I did for the film magazine, but this was like one of the first things I wrote. I think it might have been the first thing I ever wrote for the film magazine. So this is 2018. So this is 7 years ago I read the book. I have hazy memories of the rough ideas and the specifics are slightly different. But yeah, it's essentially Ely is a vampire who's stuck as a 12-year-old and needs a guardian to go out and do all the killing for her. And it's interesting that it never really goes into in the film exactly what this kind of Renfield relationship is. It's kind of, you can work it out, but they never actually say. In the book, it's a little bit more in depth.
That's They make it explicit in the remake. Richard Jenkins playing the guardian that, and it's made explicit that he was once Oscar. Essentially, they had the same relationship, and he's grown up with with that kind of codependent kind of relationship. So
well, and in the book, he's explicitly a pedophile being exploited.
Yes.
So
it is. I have an eternal 12-year-old here, essentially. I will do whatever you want.
What I like about it in this movie is it is a bit more ambiguous. It doesn't seem necessarily sinister or Renfield-like. It seems the first time I saw this, I thought it was like her dad. I thought it was paternal. So I think a lot of that subtext from the book is left out.
That's what Oscar presumed as well. I think he calls him her dad at one point, doesn't he?
And the interesting thing, I mean, it's interesting. There's a comparison with Sadako here, and I'm calling her Sadako. It's not Samara. I refuse to. And also because in the original Ring novel, I think I've mentioned this before. Sadako is I don't know who'd use the word now, but in the book and the translation, hermaphrodite is the word that is used.
Yes.
Yes. I in the nicest way, I'm not above my terminology to know if this is an archaic term now or
intersex, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, intersex. I think it's saying.
I think we use the term now more for kind of animal biology rather than for humans.
Yes.
But I'm fairly sure in the book as well there is some strange kind of gender ambiguity with Ely as well. I don't think.
I think it's theorized she is actually a castrated boy.
I thought that was, so from my reading, I thought that was explicit in the book, whereas the movie changes her to a girl. But then whenever we do get that brief shot of her changing, like after I'd read about the castration, I was like, wait a second, I don't know.
I think it's meant to be a weird scar that you glimpse. Yeah.
She says,
I can't remember.
But like that's referencing I'm a very old vampire. I'm not a small girl.
I think it's meant to be. You can take it either way. But sorry, I hadn't reread up on the book and I couldn't remember, but I knew there was something about the ambiguity there.
I believe you're supposed to. When he was a child, he was supposed to be a boy, and then got castrated and then got turned, I believe.
At the very least, for the American version, it would have to be explicitly a girl.
They got rid of that.
Say the sleepaway camp.
Chloe Grace Moretz was definitely just a century-old girl.
But I think the influence of this and the reason why this is really good is that there is actually, I think, a little bit of, I think definitely Stephen King coming through. And bearing in mind, this was written in 2004, but Stephen King is now across the world, and there are whole books written on the fact that essentially, before kind of Carrie, horror was just a thing that was written. You slotted it in other places. Like the horror section of the bookshop didn't exist until Stephen King came along. Now it's a thing, So anybody writing kind of vampire stuff and especially to do with children in horror, is kind of under the influence of Stephen King in some way. So there is definitely a King thing going on, and therefore it is a focus on the relationship between these two characters rather than the vampire-ness. Even though there's stuff going on as well. And it's so beautiful. Obviously, the cinematography is done by name. Does all of Nolan's stuff now? Forget the name. Hoyt van Hoytema. That's it, isn't it?
Yep.
Who is it? Is it all Nolan stuff? Yeah. Interstellar, Spectre, Dunkirk, Ad Astra, Tenet. Nope.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer, doing the Odyssey, coming in, all this stuff. And I think realistically, although he did other stuff as well, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy was the other Thomas Alfredson film he did.
So which is one of my favourite book to film adaptations ever. It's so good.
But I to be honest, I think perhaps Let the Right One In is the one that kind of set him on the path to go. Because again, it's like it's so Swedish in a way, because it is the snow. It is there are. I mean, having been to Sweden several times, but not for sort of half my life, you don't get that much of the kind of Swedenness, but you can still tell, and it's not just because of the pine forest and the snow. There's a feel to it
and
that
the
is
blonde
definitely of that country, and it's actually there is a distinct. I mean, when I was at Dracula, I was pitching an idea. I may have said before of the Dracula problem, which is that when you write about vampires, essentially now in the public imagination, the idea of Dracula is so synonymous with the idea of vampire that you essentially subconsciously have to do battle with your audience to go, we're either leading into it or we're not. Because as soon as the word vampire is brought up, they have a list of rules in their head that you have to kind of go with or against. One of the things this does is so very well just cross them all off. It's like, is this gothic? Not really. Yeah, there are gothic elements, but it's also ridiculously stark blanched white, which is something that Let Me In will kind of go against. Do we have turning into bats? No, not really. Do we have kind of lurking shadows? Well, little bits, but we've also got hanging upside down and draining blood like that. There are so many things that go against the Dracula stereotype.
Kieran, is wealth inherent to the gothic genre, or could you have like poor people gothic in like an apartment building? instead of
I
a
mean,
giant mansion.
I think
Old
that there's
Gothic,
there's
not
a
really.
certain there's a certain opulence to traditional Gothic, isn't there?
Well, I mean, in general, literature until sort of like the turn of into the 1900s didn't really focus on poor characters. You did it occasionally. Dickens might have done it, but even then, quite a lot of the characters they hung around with were fairly wealthy or come into wealth.
If characters in like Oliver Twist are getting possessed, is it still Gothic or?
I mean, if you've read Great Expectations, or even Christmas Carol, there are allusions to Edward Berger's poem Lenore, which is a founding text of vampire mythology. But in terms of kind of the Gothic, when it starts in the first load of texts like Walpole and Anne Radcliffe stuff and Matthew Lewis and Frankenstein, they're not poor. So the kind of Gothic literature, when it's set up and the people writing it, they're not poor. It's not about poor people. Therefore, to take it out of there, and this is kind of something that, I mean, you get in this. I mean, even sort of the early Universal movies, it's Count Dracula, it's Baron Frankenstein and stuff like that. Even The Invisible Man. You've got to have a certain amount of money to be able to conduct all these scientific experiments for the potion to turn you mad and invisible. It's the 50s, 60s, 70s that really starts to turn everything over. And Stephen King is one of the people that really grounds this. Especially in the Gothic, and one of his main things is to add loads of brand names into it, which is stuff that everybody uses, so that you bring it down to the common folk. So, not really, which is again why this is quite different. You just have like a vampire just in an apartment with nothing there aside from like diamonds that are obviously, in the nicest way, if you're over 200 years old and you don't have something like that, what have you been doing, spending all your time doing? Like,
I mean, we should talk about like the two main performances in this, which I think are up there with the best children's performances of all time. They're both great, and obviously that decision to dub Ely's voice with an older, more androgynous sounding actor was a really good decision. It kind of just unsettles you a bit, doesn't it? Just makes it seem a bit off, a bit uncanny.
Yeah.
See, I did think that with David and not with her. Interesting.
Yeah.
It's just pitched right. I think that works therefore on a subconscious level, which shows that it's pitched just at the right right amount. There's some interesting stuff here. One of the things I like is the crossing the threshold thing. It's like, I can't come in unless you invite me. What happens if you do? I will show you. And it just starts bleeding. It's like, okay, go back over. And there are things about that in lore and what have you. But I think there are several standout moments, but one of them which we have to discuss is the swimming pool.
Yes.
Because possibly somehow like the most beautiful sort of massacre scene ever shot.
Yeah.
Like it's just so perfect and so well done. It's just like, hold your head underwater and you're just underwater, then after a couple of seconds you hear muffles, and then it's the legs that do it. Where just like you got the shot here, and then to the one side of frame, somebody's legs come in the water and they're dragged back, kicking, and ripped up again. And you know what's going on, and you know what's happening, and you're with Oscar the entire time. That he doesn't know what's going on either, and it's beautifully done. It's amazingly done.
The little kids with knives were very Stephen King to me.
Yeah. I mean, what I like about the gang in this is it's very typical. It looks like that typical kind of 80s kind of gang of bad kids in a kids movie who are never normally that intimidating. Except in this one, as you say, they've got knives, or like the older brother will literally try and murder you for bursting his kid brother's eardrum.
It's like in a zombie movie or show where they're like, the real evil is humanity. Like that's what it feels like this movie is also going for. The real villains are bullies.
Yeah. And that's why kind of it works again. I think this is why Wikipedia tries to call it a romantic film. Because you do have these two outsiders that strike up this friendship.
Yeah,
and
I think it's a romance. It's a platonic romance. So if that's not a nonsense. It's slightly different.
I think romance has to have a level of experience to it too. Coming of age is for like first romance.
Yeah, and again, this is definitely a King-esque kind of influence. But yeah, you have just two beautiful performances and Ely, whoever plays Ely in this. Let me just double check. Lena Lee Anderson as Ely, and then Edith Kalen as her voice. Just they're so good together, and so kind of mysterious. And then when she wants to be, she can be absolutely feral, And it's that hidden monstrosity in it. But you she's a bad person. She's going, Guardian, murder people for me so I can drink their blood. But at the same time, there is a kind of pathos there that's kind of started to be brought in sort of Anne Rice sort of thing, the tormented soul. I mean, there are other traces in there. Varney has bits of moping in his 600,000 word slog.
Yes.
But it makes me think an awful lot of I haven't seen the movie, I only read the book, of Claudia in Interview with a Vampire, who is turned, I think, at the age of 14. And it kind of disastrous goes off the rails and stuff like that. And a child vampire like that, it's interesting to see one that's made it this long. So there's a little bit almost of Orphan in this to a certain extent. Again, the whole thing of the time being out for this character means that you have this just weird thing just going on that you have to kind of process, and that's where the evil kid part comes in. It's just in general, it's a beautifully done movie. You watch it and you're like, I remember this being a good movie, and then you watch it and you go, yeah, that's because it is a really good movie.
So, I do have I agree it's a good movie, but the cat part in this version is really dumb and looks bad. Is it any better in the American version?
Which is the cat?
I don't remember that bit.
Is this where all the cats attack?
Yeah, she gets bitten, doesn't die, gets attacked by the cats, goes to the hospital, and then gets set on fire when the sun touches her.
I remember them doing the set on fire scene again. I can't remember whether they do the cats again in the remake.
You erase the cat part from your memory because it's so dumb.
I mean, bearing in mind this film was shot for $4.5 million. This is not a massive budget, and this is 2007, 2008 CGI, which, let's be honest, there are big budget films with like 100 times that amount of money where the CGI isn't much better. I'm not saying that justifies it, but I'm saying
do something else.
I mean, as much as I do like the remake, they do lean more into the CGI aspects. They do make Abby in that version a bit more kind of monstrous at times. When she's like on like a blood rage, basically they kind of do some stuff to make her a bit more kind of supernatural, I suppose.
Vampire.
Which I don't think necessarily works. I don't think it's needed. You can just do that with performance really if you're good enough. I mean, I do find it amazing that Thomas Alfredson did this great, and then went on to Tinker Tailor great again, and then did the Snowman. It's like, come on! It's like, what?
He did the Snowman. I've heard it's absolutely atrocious.
It's
You want it so badly to be good because it feels like it should be, and it just never makes sense because of how it was shot and all that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with his directing in this is quite often you have these kind of characters in frames within frames very often, because this is a film about isolation. This is a film about being closed in and cut off from people,
cold,
and then finding a connection. So it gives you that claustrophobia for when the moments of horror and violence happen, but then it kind of gives you that kind of freedom right at the end where he's riding the train out with the trunk, which is obviously kind of substituting for a coffin. Going on, and again, this is a modern updating of everything like that. I think it's a beautifully done movie. Really well done film.
The isolated shots, every time they're outside, you get the opposite. You get the vast expanse of bleak snow and forest, and God, I would hate to live in Sweden. Sorry, Swedes. It doesn't look great.
It's a beautiful place, but there are times where it's just like, yeah, you wouldn't like the night times. But yeah, I do think I mean, me and Sam have seen this one. I don't know if you've seen it, Jacob. The Innocents.
Oh, no.
That
I've
came
seen
out
The
a few years
Turning.
ago. I mean, this is the other Innocents
Yeah.
from 2021. Danish, is it?
But-
I think.
I believe so, yeah. But again, quite similar in a lot of ways because it's like a working class kind of apartment complex, isn't it?
Yeah. I
except
describe it as Let the Right One Eat and meets Firestarter.
Yeah, basically.
Sorry, it's Norwegian.
Oh.
I knew it was Scandinavian, but that is really good. It is kind of it's Stephen King kind of a load of kids discover they've got kind of telekinetic powers, but then they're in a kind of Let the Right One In style apartment complex, but then like one or two of them become bullies and stuff like that and start using them to. It's so good. I saw it.
So it's like X-Men.
Kind of in a way.
Kind of indie budget X-Men, yeah.
Yeah, but they're all kind of kids in an apartment complex, and the way that it's shot and the use of the apartment complex and the kind of, again, Scandinavian, and bearing in mind Sweden and Norway border each other, there's obviously an influence from Let the Right One In there, so it is still influencing these films as it goes on. And I mean, it got all the Let the Right One In got all the reviews. It obviously got a remake very quickly from Matt Reeves, who's gone on to do pretty much everything. So good.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I had seen it once before, but it was a long time ago, and then I forgot it was 2008, not 2011.
Because the remake is 2010.
Sam, you mentioned that the other one takes place in the 80s. I couldn't quite. It took me a while to really figure out from the movie and not Googling that this took place in the 80s. Otherwise, I was like, well, maybe it's just he's poor, so.
Yeah, it's less obvious. You thinking, is it its period set, or are they just Swedish and poor?
Yeah, maybe they don't like modern wallpaper in Sweden. I don't know. But like it is styled really well, like the art direction and design and all that to make it a period piece. It is well done.
Yeah, I think it's set in 1982 apparently.
Yeah,
same as the remake. I mean, the remake grounds it in that time straight away because the opening scene you get Reagan's speech on the radio. So.
Well, it then makes me wonder, like, I was never alive in 1980s or 2000s Sweden. How much of this is Cold War, like, retrospective, where, like, oh, the people are being, they're dying, and